Next, in the sequence, you've got your flat back. Now, do you have to use the stick? You don't have to do anything, but bringing the arms up gives excess load into the verticality of your spine that gravity's already pushing into and you're already having to come up against. When we start going back, gravity's going to attack us from a different plane, okay? Having the arms up and that load into the upper body makes us have to come up more. Now, if I try to start this by leaning back in my shoulders, I'll get a little swan action and a little extension at the top. Exhale, contract, pull back in. Now that is a great variation, but reality, there's only going to be so far back I'm going to be able to go with this before I'm going to need to open up my hips and extend my hips, which means I need my bum and my back and my legs. I need all that work. Now this variation is crazy advanced because if your low back isn't strong, it's going to cry. Abs got to pull it back together. Now, I see a lot of people start short box with that variation as an instinct because the hip flexors are tight. Lumbar is tight, right? But tight doesn't always mean supple. Tight doesn't always mean that there's the potential for movement, right? So what we still want is the ability to say, I can take myself out of hip flexion with my hip extensors, and I choose to keep my spine in a flat back versus rounding, curving, flexing, and articulating. Therefore, I'm going to have to, again, start in my hips. Not start leading from my head or leading from opening the chest, leading from shoulders. I've got to lead from tail under, abs up, and this weight of the arms up is telling me how high I've got to lift to come back home. But there's always opposition. For me to lift and pull back, I've got to reach, tail, under, out, push through my heels to find that flexion in the ankle. And yes, I start shaking because this is hard, right? So there's that action of you see glutes engaged and you see me like, I like to call it whack-a-mole, you know, where you like go up and down, right? But that's really saying, hey, glute hammy, get in the mix, open up the hip flexors, and then figure out what in your core and in your powerhouse holds that vertical alignment with all this load of your arms. It makes your back so strong. And as you advance through the method, we go from all this work of flexing the spine to all this work where your spine's in like a straight neutral. I say, because there's a lot of work in neutral, right? There's a lot of work to be neutral, right? But all of a sudden in the more advanced work, you've got this tall, strong spine. This is where it starts. So let's take this into long stretch on the reformer. Let's talk about the flat back from your short box and your long stretch, okay? Now, I love the traditional mount because you have to come right up into center, okay? So that traditional mount will have a hand and an opposite foot. So you're looking for, however, how this diagonal already comes through. You're not just like hanging out, right? But then you have the other hand, and as soon as I come up, I've got to pull this whole side together because the weight's coming into it, and up I go, and then ready. Not all of my clients can do that the first time. Can yours? Yeah, that's what I thought. So I do reference it to planking a lot, especially to try and get people into the exercise, because what you just saw looked easy peasy because I made it look that way. That's not that easy, right? Especially when you still need to build that awareness of how the side body holds in and lines up, and that's why you keep doing your short box series. So let's say you want to approach it from more of the plank, and your feet are back, and the hips are going to be a little forward of your knees, right? Because again, you're going to have to go forward, right? You're going to have to go forward. Now this takes a lot of upper body strength, okay? And you have to try not to pull on the reformer if you've got a traditional reformer where the foot bar does not latch, right? On more contemporary pieces, the foot bar can be moved, it can be secured, and it can make getting into this exercise a whole lot easier. It's the truth. But if I think about how I have to pull as I find my heels reach back, that in itself is a huge thing. And if I want to come out of that, coming over the toes, I have to feel how my back has to keep enough weight over the bar to let my knees come back down. Now, if you want to do one leg at a time. Okay, if I take one leg, now I'm going to feel myself tipped. Now I have to not let myself hang into some lumbar lordosis here. So that's, again, thinking about back to when you were doing flat back. And I said, are you leading your flat back with the shoulders and head going back? Because then, look, you're going to get that swan-esque feeling and that little lordotic feeling down there. And again, that's a thing. But now you see why you also have to keep that length and that push from the hips up through and really move back from your hips and your flat back, okay? Because I cannot push the carriage from a place of loaded lordotic. I'm not even gonna bring my other leg up because that's how you hurt yourself demonstrating, okay? Right, so I'm gonna bring myself back on up and check the moment when I have to connect. I'm not gonna say tuck. I'm gonna say connect tail into the back of the legs, connect tail into the heels. The same way I had to connect in that roll up, the same way I had to connect when my feet were under the strap. We're just flipped over, you know, stretched out on two springs. Totally the same thing. So I let my hips come forward, but in that forwardness, I'm already thinking, where are my feet? Where are my feet? Because as my feet push down, it's gotta come up through. Get back on the balls of those feet, right? And as I press out, it's because of that reach tail to heels. And as I go farther out, here I hit this place where my arms are up over my head, almost. Pull back forward. Everything pulls back into center. Everything's going to stretch out from center. Legs, arms, everything's reaching out from center. Pull back in. And I'm looking for the strength of that flat back to support me up out of the springs so I can find the reach of my arms and legs. Again, if that flat back becomes a drop and an arch, it's a different thing, okay? So that's what your flat back in your short box is trying to give you. That strength to hold everything together as you are being pushed and pulled on by weight and gravity.